time to get right on the mark with the UT columnist and sports writer extraordinaire, Mr. Mark Zeigler. Mark, long time no chat.
Yeah,
welcome back. Let's get right to it. The last article of yours that I read with great interest was on just recently, the 23rd, on the article on how the G League might affect college basketball here on the Mesa. The G League, of course, being the league between college and pro basketball, NBA basketball. Could you expand on how it will affect?
Well, they're offering the top maybe 20, 25 players or somewhere in that amount, $125,000 to play, which seems like a ton of money for a kid coming out of high school. And San Diego State is recruiting Jaden McDaniels, ranked number 4th player in the country. He would fall in that group, and he'll probably have that offer. And I don't think he'll take it. I think his body is not quite developed enough. G League is no joke. I mean, it's a pretty high level. But the thing to watch in all this is the shoe companies, because a kid, $125,000 might seem like a lot, but it's not a great amount when you look what they're going to make in the NBA. But if a shoe company comes along and says, hey, if you come out of college, if you don't go to college, we can give you a shoe contract, $5 million, here you go. Hard to pass that up.
Then it becomes a better bet. And, of course, Jalen is a hot prospect because his older brother plays already on the Mesa. It would seem like a natural fit that he would come and follow in his brother's sneakers.
Yeah, I think San Diego State is in the Final Five with Kentucky, UCLA, Washington's in there, Texas is in there. I mean, those are pretty big schools, but San Diego State, I think, is leading right now. The key is going to be, does Jaden decide to sign in the early signing period in November? Or does he wait until the spring? And the longer it goes, those other schools can catch up with the comfort and familiarity. San Diego State has that advantage right now because of his brother.
Brendan Stone was at Cal State San Marcos for Midnight Madness. They were also celebrating 20 years of athletics there. But it got us wondering, wasn't that something that used to go on the Mesa? And why did they
Every now and then, Steve Fisher did it one year, and it was pretty well attended, and people got into it. But I just think, there's enough hype during the season. I think they like to keep this time of year pretty low-key under the radar. Get to work, put their hard hats on, and I think maybe they'll bring it back every few years, but I don't think it'll be a regular thing there. Mission
Bay's Boogie Ellis is being recruited by everybody. He's been at North Carolina. He's at Duke right now.
He's going to Duke this weekend. Is he scheduled to be there?
So
I'm hearing that Duke is going to be the team, but you don't know. These are 17, 18-year-old kids making decisions, and they change their minds quite quickly. San Diego State's still in the mix. I have a feeling he's headed to the ACC, though.
And so when Duke calls, it's hard to... And one other big basketball story before we segue to something else. The Adidas verdicts, or at least the first three. The Adidas scandal is... How badly is college basketball going to be rocked by all this?
Well, we'll see. The NCAA sits on the sidelines right now. They've sort of been asked to take a step back until the trials are over. There's 2 more trials to go, and the next 2 involve coaches, including one of them, former San Diego State assistant Tony Bland. They'll be in February and April, I believe. And then we'll see what the NCAA does. I mean, I don't have a lot of confidence in the NCAA. I mean, look what they did with North Carolina in that academic fraud case. I mean, it was the mother of all cases, and they got off with nothing. So it's hard for me to sort of take the leap, but they should do something, of course.
How nervous is Tony Bland right now when you start seeing guilty verdicts?
Well, that's the problem, is the feds don't lose. And I think this was the one case, the first one, that was a little bit iffy up in the air, tough to kind of prove what they were trying to prove. A lot of people thought they wouldn't get it done. They got it done. The next 2, I think, are more cut and dry. I think you get a little bit worried if you're one of those coaches out there.
The NFL did something they haven't done in the Super Bowl era. They fired a referee. Ironically, Hugo Cruz missed this call that involved our Chargers. Blatant. Come on. The Browns gave up. They thought it was going to be... the call was coming and a false start, and Hugo Cruz missed it. It happened right in front of his nose.
You know what? I have a little bit different take on this because for some reason I have a little bit of compassion for referees. I was a high school basketball coach for over 10 years. I dealt with a lot of iffy calls, as you do in high school, but they're human beings. And I get at this level, you've got to make a statement. You've got to try to clean stuff like that up. But I like the human element in sports. It makes sports interesting. If you go to see a play, you know how it's going to end. You don't know what's going to happen in basketball, in football, and baseball. It's just, I mean, look at the NFL this weekend. We had a guy miss an extra point who never missed one and cost him a game. Referees make mistakes sometimes. You don't want to see egregious ones, but that's part of the game.
Lastly, being that you are our soccer extraordinaire, we're getting closer to Election Day. What are your exit polls telling you? Is it going to be Soccer City? Will it be San Diego State or SDSU West? Well, who's going to win it all? And what's going to happen after Election Day?
Well, if you look at the polls, and we commissioned a poll, Union Tribune, it was pretty wide margin, 57% for SDSU West, 32% for Soccer City. I don't think Soccer City has a chance to get to that 50% threshold. I think we can all agree on that. I think the question now is, does San Diego State get to the 50% threshold +1 that they need to win. If both of them lose, it goes back to a request for proposal at City Hall. If San Diego State wins, now the next question becomes what happens to soccer in San Diego. And I don't think it's necessarily dead because they've got a stadium proposal. Their stadium is going to be designed by a company that's designed the last half dozen Major League Soccer stadiums, built the soccer specs. I think their phone starts ringing with prospective MLS teams.
On that, we end it. Thank you very much, Mark. We'll have a bunch of stuff coming your way tonight on the ASR. Sadly, the 5 p.m. newscast has concluded, but here's the good news. The KUSI News at 6 p.m. is coming up next.